Okay, cool. Let's talk about floor plans. Who's excited about floor plans? Maybe type a yes in the chat. You know, we talked a lot of like boring stuff, but I think it was necessary, especially if you're planning to like open up a clinic. Maybe type yes in the chat. Okay. Everyone's like, oh my God, I'm glad we're finally done all this legal stuff. All right, so let's do a poll. I want to find out like how much square footage are you getting for your next clinic, right? So let's launch this poll. I want to get the type of size are you getting. Is it less than 1,000 square feet? Is it 1,000 to 1,500? Is it 2,000, 3,000? What do you think the number is, Paul?
I think it's gonna be 15 to 2,000, 1,500 to 2,000.
Okay, what about you, Daryl?
2 to 3.
2 to 3. Okay, let's share the results. What is it?
Ooh, 1,000 to 1,500.
Wow. See, I told you this like earlier this week, Paul. I thought like most people starting up their clinic is usually around like 1,000 to 1,500 square feet, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, and once you start moving up, like you'll realize, oh my God, I don't have enough space. I actually need about 2,500 square feet, right? You know, which is kind of. So, Paul, like you've gone through so many clinics. What would you say is the optimum size if you don't want to like move your space again in the future?
Yeah, that's a great question. So let's assume that you have a good marketing plan in, you have a good location, you know that you're going to get assessments, right? Or that you have a really good chance of getting assessments. I'd say the optimal size is about 22 to 2,500 square feet, 2,200 to 2,500 square feet. It's not super huge, but it's also enough where you can actually you can grow significantly in that space. And I'm talking about anywhere between $1.5 to $3 million worth of revenue, right?
Totally. At 2,200 square feet, you could hit 2-3 million easily, right?
That's right.
You could hit 2 million easily. Yeah.
Yeah, but with 1,000 to 1,500 square feet, and you know, again, everybody has to start somewhere. So you guys are all going to go through this journey, and don't change your plans just because we're saying this stuff. But like 1,000 to 1,500, you're you're going to find you're very limited by space very quickly. You know, if you're getting enough new assessments, right?
What about you, Daryl?
Yeah, no, I'm the same. About 2,000 to 2,500. What I find is if I'm below the 1,800, you really have to be crafty and savvy with your actual floor plan, and it takes a lot of time and lots of renditions. I think the piece though that to share though is what's come up quite a bit in some of our community conversations is that it's like, well, how many beds do I need? And I have all these therapists that I want to work at the same time because they're getting all these assessments, and now you actually have a problem because you can't actually get enough patients on beds. So it's just something to certainly think about, but my sweet spot certainly, I would totally agree with Paul.
Yeah, and also like, also building your space. Maybe you don't build it. Maybe you build it to a certain layout, but make sure your layout is flexible enough that you could expand into non-essential space. So, for example, gyms. I mean, gyms I think are essential, but if you really had to create more bed space, then you could expand into the gym or boardroom space or staff rooms. Like those are all areas that you could potentially expand treatment beds into, right?
Yeah, I think the only other thing too, if I have chosen less than 2,000 square feet, it's because there's a lot of common area that I get to utilize. So if all my washrooms, for example, are in a medical space or a development, I'm actually okay because it's all about my usable space.
That's a great point.
Yeah. And then once again, guys, like, it depends on how you run your operations, right? And this is something we do in our community all the time. We get everyone to go on shifts versus non-shifts, right? Paul, can you maybe share with like our attendees like what we mean by that and how it could have impact on your business?
Yeah, for sure. So I think the majority of clinic owners, have a shift that looks like the non-shift side, where it's like 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Maybe like they go into the evenings, 5 to 6 p.m., that sort of thing. And that shift is really designed for the clinician, right? The clinician wants to work 9 to 5, but if you're really, wanting to provide a business that is patient-centered, that is really about the patient experience and the patient journey, then the shifts actually become really important because most people in the general population work a 9 to 5, right? And so if you don't have a shift where you start before their 9 to 5 or a shift where they can come after work into the evening, then that's going to be a very poor patient experience. So what we do is we have a morning shift and an evening shift, 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. and 1:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. We also do not, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but we don't do part-time people. Everybody works full-time hours, or we try anyways to get people to work full-time hours, because again, it's about patient experience. We want patients to have consistency with the same person, getting enough frequent treatments and front-end loading those treatments so that we get patients better faster, right?
Yeah, and that's a good point, because if you only have like 6 beds, right? If you only have 7 beds at your clinic at 1,500 square feet, if you run non-shifts, like you can only like put one person, like you could have twice as much, you could move those beds twice as much if you actually run into shifts.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I think on that note too is, we don't want to get into the patient experience stuff too much here, but I'm also a prime example personally when I was transitioning out of my full-time clinical role, and what I'm doing when I'm mentoring right now is we prescribe based on the clinician availability. So I would do that, as opposed to truly what the patient needs, because we know that as clinicians we aren't really good at sharing patients, even when we want to. It's that patient has built a relationship with me, and it's really protective of all of us. So I think that's the piece that you really want to think about is my availability versus the patient's need.
Yeah, and we're not saying this is easy to do, but if you have the right culture and you actually have like the right people on board, and you've done over time, if you could get your clinic to be running shifts, you'll find that you actually don't need 3,000 square feet. You can actually run a $2 million, $1 million clinic off like 1,000 or 1,500 square feet, right?
Yeah.
But you have to be running shifts. So I'm just curious, and maybe in the question box, who right now is using shifts at your clinic? Maybe type yes or no. Type yes if you're using shifts in your clinic. Okay, nice. There's a lot of people using shifts. I like it. No. Okay. There's no, it's a split, half, yes, no. Okay, let's do some math here. So assuming you only have 6 beds, okay? If you run 4 shifts, if you have 6 beds and you could actually have 4 shifts a day, okay? And that means in a week you would actually have 28 shifts, right? When I'm saying like running your clinic optimally, you want to be opening on Saturdays and Sundays, right? And if the average like person sees like 14 patients per shift at 80% utilization, that means for 6 beds you could actually crank out 392 patients per week, right? And that's $1.6 million having 6 beds running shifts. And that to me is a 1,500 square feet clinic. But this is like a tight operation.
That's a tight operation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's a tight operation, and we've seen people do it, and it's pretty amazing. But even if you did like set 80% of that, the 80-20 rule, right? You had 1 morning shift and 2 evening shifts. You're still going to get very close numbers to that, like 1.2, 1.3, which is pretty awesome. I know some of the people on the call are probably like, holy shit, we're open on Sundays? Like, who opens on Sundays, right? This is the direction that healthcare is going. It's about patient experience. It's about availability. It's about making sure that your schedule caters to your patients and not necessarily your clinicians, right?
Yeah, I think in the past too, we would have said we had failed attempts at doing weekends. And right now my clinical practice, because of my schedule, is on a Saturday and it's full.
Yep.
Yeah, I know clinics opening on Sundays now too. Like used to be Saturdays, now it's Sundays, right? And you're gonna find you're gonna find your senior therapist won't do these jobs, but like the new people will, right? Just depends on the messaging that you put together, right? And we talked about this earlier, like part-timers and full-timers, Paul, right?
Yeah, part-timers, I call part-timers clinic killers, right? And it's nothing about their personality or nothing about how they treat, right? It's purely because I know that if I want my patients to get better, I know I'm going to front end load those treatments. I want those patients to not come forever, not come for the rest of their lives, but for the first couple of weeks at least, I want them to come 2 to 3 times a week. But if I have someone working just Tuesday, Thursday, and they're at another clinic on the rest of the week, the chances of those 2 days of the clinician's days matching up with the patient's 2 days that they need to come in, the chances of those 2 days matching up are very slim. Like, it's very unlikely, right? Some of you might have people who are working 3 days in the morning and 3 days in the evening. That's essentially the same thing as having 2 part-time people, one person working in the evening, one person working in the morning. The same effect is going to happen. So, again, for me, it's about consistency, patient experience, having the availability of that physio, that chiro, that massage therapist available for that patient. And you can only achieve that with full-time people.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, absolutely. So let's go through these floor plans, right? I like the schematic here because I like rectangles, right? And I hate skinny rectangles, and I hate like odd shapes, and I'm not a big fan of squares. Daryl, what's your thoughts about this when it comes to a floor
Yeah.
plan?
Yeah, I've designed all of those spaces in the past, and rectangle 100% as much as I possibly can.
But a fat rectangle, not a skinny one.
Yeah,
right?
no, like actually, you can't see my screen, but I'm circling with my finger the one on the left.
Okay, cool. Paul, anything else you want to add to this?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, you don't want a rectangle that's too fat either. It has to be sort of the just right, like the thing right in the middle. That's the most effective for sure.
Okay, so I think we have about 10 floor plans here. So I thought let's roll it. Let's kind of go through it, and we'll do some like kind of like feedback on what we think about each of them. That sounds cool? All right, let's do the first one. Can everyone see this on their screen? Maybe type yes in the question box if you can see this clearly. Okay, cool. All right, so this is one of those odd shape ones, right? So let me pull out my pen. Okay, here's my little pen. I think this is the entrance here, right? And this is the can you see my mouse here or no?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so waiting area. I think this is the waiting area, front desk waiting area. There's a room back here, right? Room, odd shape, What are your thoughts about that, Daryl?
So my thoughts are it's a small space. So when I have those small spaces, I would be looking at creating, less private rooms in that situation. I would be building in more sort of open curtain areas that would bleed into the gym. So because it's a really small gym space in there. So I would probably leave those, those private rooms in the back corner there. But I would turn that in because you can actually gain more beds as well. Usually for 2 private beds, I can get 3 beds in a curtain area, which is still private.
And this leads to an interesting conversation. There's a constant debate within the industry is like about, private rooms versus curtains, right? Like what and it's bad for patient experience. What are your thoughts about that, Daryl?
Yeah, so I'm certainly a guy with a bias, right? So majority of my practices have always been in an open concept area. It may have been my training, but I always have my private rooms when it comes to my initial consults and whatnot. But me, the type of patient population I see, and the fact that I supervise a lot of physios, and we know that mentorship and support is the #1 thing that a lot of our younger grads are looking for, and it's very difficult to mentor in a private room. So having that open visibility, it's great for mentorship. It's great for patients' interaction because we know there's a social benefit, but it's also really good for culture as well.
What about you, Paul?
Yeah, I'm the same way. I think Daryl and I grew up in the same environment, right? So I prefer open curtain rooms as well. And it's not just visibility, it's also auditory, right? Like you can actually hear what's going on. And especially when you do a lot of mentoring and bring a lot of new people on, you want to be able to hear the type of conversations, the type of scripting that they're using, so you can actually give feedback on that. The other thing too that I find with closed rooms, and you guys will, whoever's on the call here, you'll notice this, is that the amount of time, and I know this seems silly, but the amount of time it takes to go in from one closed room to another closed room, those are like 3 or 4 extra steps per patient, per treatment, right? When you start compounding that over a year, right, that adds up to a lot of steps, and that adds up to a lot of time that you're actually traveling, right? And so with open curtain rooms, especially when they're all in a row, you can travel very quickly through many different rooms.
So Paul, that's great from a staff experience, but what from a patient experience? Like if I'm a patient, don't I want to be like in a private room?
You know, I think there's a time and a place for sure, but I've seen, and I think that all boils down to a culture thing, right? You know,
Mhm.
in our clinic where we have, you know, some people are definitely going to want private rooms, and that's okay. And you know, maybe your culture is all about having that sort of spa-like, you know, treatment, and that's okay too. There's nothing wrong with that. But I've seen open curtain rooms work really well because of the culture in the clinic where the physiotherapists love working with each other. They really bounce a lot of ideas off each other. The patients actually get a sense of like how good that culture is, and it actually, I find, makes the patients want to come back more, right? Because they're like, oh, it's so fun there. I love the environment. I love how everybody talks to each other. And you know, that's sort of, you know, what I enjoyed when I was working as a physio, right?
Yeah, I
And
think the only other
I think
piece
the
that
patients see that too. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, the piece that I would add too is especially, for me, I've worked in an assistant-based model, or again, I work more in like a fellowship model with students and therapists. So, that open concept it helps that model of care if that's something that you're looking to obviously operationalize or move towards. But I would say, my practice is very big on, I do a lot of co-management with a pelvic health PT. So those patients are obviously in a private room for pelvic health, and they're coming back into my, typical orthopedic practice. And there's never a discussion about why is it that I'm with you in a closed room, and then why does Daryl always have us in an open concept space? That has never been, because I've never allowed it to be in the culture that I have within the clinics.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. I think you have to have a mix. Like I think you need
Yes.
closed rooms and you
Mhm.
need open. Well, for me, anyways, I like open rooms. So
Yeah.
it would, yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Paul, what about the space? Like this is one of those like awkward shapes that we don't like, right?
yeah.
Yeah,
To be honest,
tough.
I think they maximized the hell out of that space. I think they did a really good job, right? But the awkward space is, to me, it is really tough. And again, you can kind of see here, like the 1,000 square feet is a real limiting factor. Like let's say this person starts to really grow and they start to expand, you're really limited by to maybe 1.5 to 2 shifts a day, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe 3 shifts if you're really aggressive, right? And so,
Well,
you know,
there's 3 beds, so in theory they could run like 4 shifts a day,
yeah,
right?
that's right.
Yeah.
That's
Mhm.
right. You could, but it would be really busy, and I think you get a lot of people running into each other because the
Yeah.
space limitations are
Mhm.
there, right? But I do think they maximized it really well, though. So, but the awkward space, I think, is an issue, right?
Okay. Let's fly through the next one. What's the next? Oh, geez, what's this one? All right, let's fly through the next one. What's the next one? What about this space? 1,500 square feet. Let's see. This is the door coming in. This is the reception area. They got the gym space here, and then they got 2 rooms here, 4 closed rooms here, and then a staff room in the back.
Yeah. So for me, I actually like having the staff room close to the front desk. And the reason I like that is because sometimes the front desk will have to pull, you know, a clinician in to talk about, oh, what do you want for this treatment plan, or what do you want, you know, what's going on with this billing, or is this person coming back in? And if the front desk has to leave the front desk to go to the staff room, then it creates, you know, a little bit of a gap in patient experience if they have people waiting at the front, right?
Cool. What
Um,
about you, Daryl?
Yeah, there's a couple of things here is, and for me, I agree with Paul with the being close to the front. But I would have shifted it onto the window side, just because if you look at all those windows that are in those treatment spaces, despite that it's
Yeah.
actually quite good for marketing, it's gonna get hot in those rooms. So you're gonna have to think about that from a treatment
Yep.
perspective.
Yeah, these are the
And
windows along the wall. Yeah.
yeah, and not a bad thing. But again, that's where I really like the open concept because it helps so much with lighting and your efficiencies there. But the other piece too for me is I'm a little bit concerned about that waiting area because it's quite large and that's kind of your gym space. And depending on the patient population you see, some of my patient population wouldn't want to be on display with people in the waiting room. So that would just be a couple thoughts there moving
Do you like
forward.
your gym space in the front or in the back of the house?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. I actually make sure my gym's actually somewhat in the central area where I'm moving around the gym because I always want oversight on the gym.
well,
Okay.
this is a great. Remember how we had that skinny rectangle at the beginning, right?
Hmm.
This is an example of one of those skinny rectangles where uh, uh, the owner of this place had to shift the beds lengthwise or horizontally,
Hmm.
right? And so again, when you talk about the number of steps that you have to take, now you've actually increased those number of steps to get to every single patient, right? And so I find that you know, if you just had a little wider space, then you could have put the beds vertically, right?
Mm-hmm. I do think, again, they maximize the space as well as they
did.
could. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. Let's do the next one.
I like the coffee and drinks too. I like that part, that little bar.
What's that?
Yeah.
All right. What about this one? 1,600 square feet. So this is the entrance. You come in, reception area, right? And then they got 3 closed rooms: staff room, bathroom, and then, you know, gym slash physio curtain area.
Yeah, I think they maximize the space well, right? The only thing I would do is I'd probably switch. Maybe I wouldn't, but maybe I'd switch the staff room and the bathroom so that, you know, the bathroom is like more central and easy to access, and the staff room is again closer to the reception. What I really like about this one is that I like a galley style treatment area. So, you know, Rick, I don't know if you could take your pointer, but do you see the open rooms at the top there of that square? Right. So those, what I like is the ability to put so that bottom part of that big square would likely be a gym. But let's say this clinic gets super busy, I could actually put more beds at the bottom of that square, right? And you know, create more bed space. So it gives me a lot of options to expand out. And the galley style is good because you could put a central prep area in the middle, and then you have really quick access to all the beds from either side, from top and bottom, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think just the piece there about just moving around the washrooms, I can see why they did it the way they did, because obviously all your plumbing is actually set well there, so it would be more efficient. But I agree with Paul, like if you do just make a couple shifts and you just move things around, if this isn't developed yet, that would be one piece. The other thing I would do is I'd be quite strategic if this is a multidisciplinary site. You know, for me, I know there's a little bit of a gap in those 3 rooms there, but I would want my, you know, for me as a PT assessor, I would want to be as close to the treatment space as possible for my consult. But then you got to be mindful of, you know, where's your RMT, for example, where you know that needs to be a little bit quieter in a privater space. You know, if it is going to be up in the top front, you may need to insulate that room a little bit more. So it's just a few things that way, just on that structure, because of how that door would slam. So I think you just want to be mindful of how you set up those private rooms because of where your traffic is. But I do like the gym setup.
Daryl brings up an amazing point, right? The RMT, so I'm just going to repeat it, the RMT space, you really should make sure it's insulated well, right? Make sure that from a sound perspective, because a lot of these sort of commercial buildings, they don't put any soundproofing between the walls. It's really bad patient experience when they're getting you know, this massage treatment, then they hear like crash, something fell on the floor outside, or you could hear people talking. Like, you know, insulate your massage rooms for sure.
Yeah, one time I put the pulleys on the massage wall, and that was a bad idea.
Hey, I'm curious, like maybe in the question box, maybe give a score out of 10. What do you guys think about this floor plan here? Out of 10. 10, you love it. 0, you don't like it. Tammy, you're about to say something?
Yeah, I just have a question. I get a question from a lot of clinicians when I'm helping them set up a clinic, and they're always wondering how big the treatment rooms should be. You know, how much space should they leave around the treatment table so that they can work well and work freely? And I see 6 by 8 there in that floor plan. Is that pretty standard for you guys?
I think that's maximizing the space for sure. 6 by 8 is tight, right? But even if you went 6.5 by 8.5, or even 7 to 9, that works as well, right? 6 by 8 is when you're really trying to fit a lot of beds in for sure.
Yeah, I will go 7 or 8. You know, so I think it's a little tight. So yeah.
And I think obviously that's the curtain area, so that, you know, that movement in the curtain certainly gives you that flexibility. But as far as a private room goes, depending on the space, you know, depending on how wide the triangle is, if you will, it's either, you know, 10 by 10 or 8 by 11, those sorts of things, because you obviously need more space because you don't have any bend in the wall as you do with the curtains.
Blair and Carrie uses 6 by 9. You know, John is like 7 by 9, right? So yeah. Cool. One thing we want to add is, like, you know, one of the things I like is, like, if your main business is like physio, And then in here, like you have like a chiro, massage, and maybe like chiro, massage, other services. It's nice that when the patient comes in, they can actually see what services are being provided before they go into the floor business, right? So it does a bit of, it's kind of that IKEA journey that you talk about all the time, Paul.
Yeah, like if you go to IKEA, you'll notice that you can't actually get to another section easily. You have to flow through the entire business, and they actually have signage with arrows pointing to what section you're going to go to next. And it's designed purposely that way, where you actually get to see every section of the business, of what types of products that they sell. And so for us, we like to design our clinics where you have to flow through, you have to see every single component of the business until you get to your treatment area. And the treatment area, you can see in the back, that's the largest area. That's where the bulk of our business is done. So everybody always flows through that way, right?
Okay, let's look at some bigger floor plans now. Geez, we're running out of time here. Let's look at maybe let's look at this one. This is 2,500 square feet. This is more square shaped, right? And so, so this is the entrance here. Like you walk in, this is the waiting area, reception here. When you come out, you got the exercise area here. You got, you know, like a private room. You got curtains here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 curtain rooms, and then you got, in essence, 3 offices. They got a mezzanine, but let's just forget that, and they got a change room here. And then they have a little like, I think this is like their sink or workstation here, right? So
yeah,
with
you know
more
what I
waiting
like?
area, yeah.
Yeah, I think the waiting area, the reception area is just slightly big, but you know, you're kind of working within a square here. What I really like is that central prep area that you just pointed out, right? And again, why is that important? Well, you can see that the access point to all the treatment rooms, whether it's closed offices or whether it's curtain rooms, it's all sort of equidistant to that central prepping area. One thing that you want to keep in mind is that central prepping area should have electricity built into the base and lots of outlets, because and it has to be big enough. I think that central prepping area is a little bit small because you're going to want people to chart there. You're going to want people to set up their hot packs there. You might even want plumbing to that area if you're really going to get fancy. I don't like plumbing because you know, because it really sort of fixes that spot. And if you want to do renos later, you're gonna have a hard time moving that central area. But that to me is one of the best design points of this space. And again, a square space is tough. Like I think they've done the best possible job here for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hey, Daryl, before you get started, maybe in the chat, in the question box, I want to, can people maybe like throw in the question box, give a score out of 10 on this plan. Is it 10? Is it 9, 8, 7? Like throw in the chat. I want to see what you guys say. Daryl, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to comment on the island too. So for me, I've used this in every clinic I've designed, you know, since the first one I've done, and it helps keep the entire clinic clean too, right? So if that island or that central kind of charting area, if you will, you know, you can put all your towels in there. Like it really just keeps everything clean. I put all of our equipments in there, so patients are always coming to that. And again, when you think about having multiple shifts and multiple PTs and chiros and RMTs working in there, it becomes your central station for equipment and resources. The only thing though that I would say that I kind of am on the same page as Paul is I try to not make that as a fixed area, just because for me, you know, when you want to take advantage of a square space, even though it's a bit more complicated, I like that because this allows me to move that island, and I can move those PT beds, and I can bring in yoga classes and Pilates classes and things like that after hours to really take advantage of my downtime in the clinic, for example. So I really like that, but I make sure you're always giving yourself enough space to think about what future growth could be from a service delivery perspective.
Yeah, cool. All right, let's move to the next one. This square plan is 2,400 square feet. Here's an odd shaped reception area, but like, you know, the reception is here. And then once they come in, they got, you know, in essence, all the closed rooms here. And then they got all the, I believe these are curtains with a galley, right?
Yeah, so this is my favorite layout because I created it. Just
I was gonna say, Paul, this looks like yours.
well, this is I think because we created this like a couple years ago, so it is actually some of the culmination of a lot of the things that we've learned over the last 15, 20 years. Couple of things that I would, again, it's kind of like that IKEA thing. You have to pass by all these, like the Chiro or massage, all these other different services to get to the current area. A couple of things I would change. I would never do circular walls again. Circular walls are just really difficult to maximize space. You do waste a lot of space. You can't put a desk right up against it unless you have a very special curved desk. You know, I would actually definitely make the laundry and the staff room smaller. You don't need a huge laundry, and you could even combine those two, and then I would get another office space in there. And then the MD flex area, we were going to have a physician come in. That didn't work out, but creating a storage area or you know, a filing area for your front desk, I think, is something that is important for clinics for sure.
Yeah, I don't have much to comment on this, Paul, and then just the circular walls look like they were probably a pain. But
I hate the circular walls. Yeah.
But the only thing that I think is important to note in Paul's here is that in a lot of the previous floor plans, we didn't really see was there laundry in those floor plans that wasn't really identified yet, and that's a huge benefit, especially if you have a multidisciplinary site clinic. And the other piece too, though, is always storage. So one of our biggest challenges has always been, you know, you try to maximize the space, but if you've got product sales and all those sorts of things going in, and if you just think of your daily equipment needs and resources that way, you know, don't forget about the amount of storage that we would need. So either you're maximizing your wall space, or, you know, you still need room for a vacuum or a, you know, a broom and things like that. So I just would say that Paul's highlighted those here, and I just wanted to mention those to the group.
What's a good square footage for what's a good size for our private rooms? We have one of the questions in the chat.
Yeah, I think 9 by 10. That's ideal, right?
Yeah, for me,
10. Okay.
Yeah, for me, I go 10 by 10, or if it's a longer, like in this case where Paul is, I may have a little bit more of a narrow room, so it might be 11 by 8 or something like that. 11 by 8.5.
Hey, let's give a score out of 10. Like, what do you guys think about this floor plan? It's a lot easier when you have 2,400 square feet to design something versus something 1,500. I'm just telling you guys, like, it's hard to design something with 1,000, 1,500 square feet. Wow, there's some 9s here, Paul. Not bad, not bad. I don't know if they like you or why they're giving you a score, but like.
Hey, Paul, if you had to expand that, where would you put your next treatment room? Where would you add the office? Would you break down the flex room, or would you take down the staff room?
I would take down the staff room and move the staff room to
the flex area?
To the flex room, yeah. Again, you want your staff room close to your front desk, right? Yeah.
All right, let's look at the next floor plan, guys. This is a bit of an odd shape one, to be honest. 2,200 square feet. The entrance is right here, so you come in, right? And reception is here, admin is right here, and then you got 1, 2, 3 private rooms with storage here, and then what is it? Bathroom back here, another exam room here, another exam room here, and then it looks like there's a little partition wall with like a big gym space here. A working island, is that what that is, Daryl? Right?
Yeah.
And then four treatment beds. Do you want to maybe just talk us through this?
Yeah, sure. So this space was actually designed. It's one of our newer clinics, and what it is on this left-hand side here, it was actually designed where we have all of our additional services. So that's where RMT and Chiro would be, but we actually have a physician practice in there as well. So it's sort of off to the left-hand side. And as you walk through the clinic, so we actually needed a little bit more of a shared reception space. So that's why it's right when you come in, and it kind of has this U shape. So that way patients can go to the left, and they obviously come into the physio space. But we set it up in a way where physio is right in visibility for physio patients coming through the door. They're aware of what services that we're offering. The main assessment area is this one down, right straight ahead. So this way you have visibility over the entire gym space. And it actually, this physio that works here primarily as the lead clinician runs an assistant model too. And she's actually quite focused on a lot of exercise equipment. So it's actually a really nice sort of gym space at the same time, with lots of room to grow and add more beds as needed. So that's why it looks a little bit open there. Okay. So this space certainly has lots of opportunity to expand that multidisciplinary clinic.
And Paul, what's your feedback on this layout?
Yeah, you know what? When I didn't know this was yours, Daryl, and that's the honest truth. So when I was looking at it, I was like, why is this set up this way? And when you say that you have a medical side and a physio side, then it makes perfect sense. Because I felt like the distance between the open rooms and the closed rooms was like far, right? And so, but it makes sense that you have the medical on that one side, and you do really want to separate those services, right?
I think you're bringing up a good point. This is important. Like a lot of the really a lot of we're giving fly by guidance right now, but we also don't understand your business model, right? So you guys have to take in we're just assuming you have a typical multidisciplinary clinic. If you have specialized services that require certain things, we're not kind of factored in. So those are things you have to kind of consider. We're just giving you general feedback of typical clinics, right? So.
That's right. That's right. So now, yeah. So and as I was saying, that now it makes a lot more sense. Again, if this was just a regular sort of rehab clinic with all the multidisciplines in it, I would try to shift it so that there was more just a one-way walk through, and then they'd have to walk right back through to get to exit as well. But
that's right.
But this makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. I do like you having open gym area with nice windows there, right? So.
Yeah, it's actually a beautiful space for sure.
Yeah, but I don't like these weird shapes like this. It's not ideal, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes sometimes you don't have a lot of options, so you don't have a choice, right? So.
Yeah, to go back and kind of summarize the points earlier, why we chose that space in the end, there's 22,000 new condo developments happening in the next 10 years in this area. So it was certainly one of those things where not the perfect space, but certainly needed room to grow, which is quite exciting about the population.
And were you the only clinic there?
No, there's 2.
Okay, so then you have a ratio of 10,000 to 1 then, right? Is it 10,000? Yeah, 10,000 people per clinic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, which makes it attractive to do. Cool. All right. All right. Oh, let's give a score out of 10. What do you guys think about this floor plan out of 10? 10 if you love it, 1 you don't. Okay.
I would just say, as we developed this one, we learned a lot about new codes that are in place. So certainly in Ontario, there's a lot of expensive stuff that goes into this. So hopefully if you're in other provinces, it's still cheaper.
Okay. So here's the last floor plan we'll look at. This floor plan is quite interesting. You walk in, it's a reception area. They also have a separate waiting area, right? So these are where because usually when you check in, it's really busy. For an existing patient, this is where they hang out, it's almost like a lounge here. And then along the way, it has some of the stuff that Paul's talking about, where you have, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 closed rooms. You got the staff room, the bathroom room, and you got an open physio gym area, right? Yeah, Paul, what do you think? What do you think about the waiting area, and what do you think about this floor plan?
So I really like the waiting area. I think it allows patients to just sort of, if they're rushing in, signing into the reception, it allows them to decompress a little bit and have a coffee or whatnot. And especially if the physio is running behind, or the chiro, or whoever's running behind, it provides a little bit more comfort. So again, it's about patient experience, right? I also think that if you do need to expand, it allows you to expand as well. So, if we're really limited by space and we start growing significantly, that waiting area becomes optional space where you could turn it into maybe 2 closed offices, or maybe you could, move the staff room to the waiting area and then add, let's say, 2 more treatment beds. But again, this 2,400 square foot facility gives you a lot of options to expand. Again, as we talked about earlier, you could actually duplicate, you have 5 open treatment rooms there in the gym area. You could actually put another 5 at the bottom and then have a galley style and get rid of your gym. So again, it's just options to expand. Maybe part of your philosophy is that you always have a gym, and that's okay too. There's nothing wrong with that. But then that's when you would look at another space. If you don't want to open up another space, putting new curtain rooms at the bottom there makes sense, right?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of maybe going all in on making your reception and actually including a waiting area, making it bigger than what most clinics do, so that you actually have a bit of that retail feel, right? And so But you're sacrificing like maybe extra room. But I think, if you're running shifts and you're doing some of the stuff we talked about earlier, you're gonna have more than enough space to actually run a $2-3 million business out of here, right?
Yeah, the one thing I would echo that, Rick, because I think when you look at a lot of the new dental setups these days, they've invested a lot of money for that experience. When you walk through, it's a much bigger space. It's actually quite sexy looking when you come through. So I think it's actually some good advice.
Yeah, like if you go to a spa, like once you pay, you sit in a waiting area. It's almost like a relaxation lounge, and so this is kind of like simulating that right now, right? So
yeah,
I would thoughts about this floor plan.
Yeah, no, I like it. I think, in the past I would have said that I don't know why a waiting room would be separate like that, but I'm looking at the style of this clinic and I actually really like it. I just think the only piece that I would look at is if you don't combine the two areas, as you sort of suggested, Rick, and I just find that reception area is quite big for me to go into a waiting area afterwards. But I do like that. I think, the staff room is a good size because you're gonna have some storage space in there that, they've got the washer and dryer. So I think this is actually a well-designed layout.
Yeah. See, the thing I like about a waiting area is that like, when a new patient like checks in and they register, like they're pretty much spilling their guts out, right? And so like there's no confidentiality there. But if you actually separate like the waiting with like reception, like I think it makes the patient experience way better.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
Cool. Okay. All right, let's give a score out of 10. What do you guys think about this floor plan? Let's see what numbers are out. Oh, there's some 9s. Oh, Evan likes a 10. Sweet. 9, 10, 7. Okay. 8. Okay. I'm curious, who right now at their clinic actually has a separate waiting area? If you do, maybe type in like a yes. It's a bit of an investment, but I do. If you have this, if obviously you can't really afford that space at 1,000 or 1,500 square feet, but if you do, like, I think it's something you may want to consider. Okay, there's a few yeses in here.
Eric, one of the other things that I find is interesting, all these floor plans, in the past, it seems that PT always has this open treatment area, and a lot of the Chiro treatment areas have been in a private room. But I would say in some of my past experiences, when I've had a great relationship with my Chiro, we've actually worked in sort of that galley system together. So I'm actually just curious, is there a lot of people that are actually moving their Chiro-based practices as well into an open sort of treatment space on the call?
Yeah, I was talking to Evan and Kate. They run a big clinic in Calgary, and they're Chiros and it's multidisciplinary. They've I think we debated about having Chiros working in curtains, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Ian from Asia says yes, right?
Yeah.
And Evan, who's a Chiro, is saying that for the next one they're gonna work in curtains.
I just think it creates a really good a true interdisciplinary model. And when people are like, well, who's this individual, and you can actually start really cross-referring, I think it's a great opportunity.
Hey, what's your thoughts about not even having the curtain and just having the beds? I see a lot of like new innovative clinics like having that now, right?
Yeah, I got in a fight with my business partner over curtains. I prefer one curtain area because, just for acupuncture, things like that. But my preference is just fully open. Okay,
cool. Was this helpful, guys? Did you find the floor plan section helpful? If you do, maybe type yes in the chat. This was cool, awesome. This is good. Getting really good feedback here. Yes. Okay, guys, we're kind of short on time. We're gonna do overtime now. I know like it's 90 minutes in, but here, take a snapshot here. This has everything. This kind of summarized everything, kind of like what we talked about over the last like 10 floor plans. We talked about having a generous reception area, like a separate waiting area, designing your schedules around shifts. So that if you have 3 beds, you can have 2 shifts in a day, right? There's some questions about that, because if you don't design, if you have for every 3 beds, if you don't do shifts, you only have 1 shift, right? Does that make sense? Yeah, something like that. And if you could get rectangles versus squares or odd-looking shapes. Staff room in the front, you want an IKEA-style journey, so you put all your products, you put all your like physio. If you're predominantly a physio clinic, you put all your other multidisciplinary servers like in the front, so that patient walks to the end, so you can see everything. If you can have a gallery-style open rooms, that's ideal. Have a central prepping and charting area. I really like this. Like, it's creating like modality like carts where you actually put all your consumables in there, right? So you actually don't have storage, right? So It's a little custom, but like that could make it super efficient. Obviously, there's tons you could do with like lighting, branding, like music, culture, putting words on your walls, social proof, and then designing the space around patient experience and staff experience, you know, so that we don't have clinician burnout. All right, does everyone have a screenshot of this?
Hey Rick, just while you're talking about the culture and the words, one of the things that I think is awesome, one of the owners in our community does it, and one of the physios that I know working there, they actually use a chalkboard. It's a little bit messy, but when you think about going into a lot of like the cool new restaurants as well, it's always sort of this friendly, chalkboard type style, and it looks fantastic in their clinic.
Yeah, there's a question about what is social proof, right? So, like a lot of chiros do this, like chiros like will put like social proofs of them pictures with certain athletes, or like they're putting their diplomas on the wall, or like maybe it's like reviews, right? But like, can you put like, it's almost like a wall of like social proof of how you have like involved with community events, right? Or like maybe a wall of wow. But there's a lot of things you could do in your business to be able to create social proof that you're involved with the community, and that like, and so I hope that makes sense. Cool. All right. All right. So before we start our next session, I want maybe the question mark. Give us a score out of 10. How valuable are you finding the first for the training so far? Out of 10, how valuable are you finding? 9, 10s. Okay, cool. I'm okay if you give me 1. We got a 7. Okay, that's cool. But a lot of 10s and 9s. Awesome. Thank you. All right. So let's move on to the